Although the adored rappers from Chicago, King Von, and FBG Duck are both deceased, new FBI documents reveal a shocking truth about their beef. Authorities revealed that King Von had put a $100K bounty on FBG Duck's head. What was their beef all about, and why did King Von put such a large amount to have his op whacked? The reason will surprise you, as their rivalry was more than just rap beef. Gangster disciples versus black disciples. The beef between FBG Duck and King Von can be traced back to the fierce rivalry between the gangster disciples, GDs, and black disciples, BDs. Duck repped STL-EBT, which is a sect of the GDs. On the other hand, Von was part of O-Block, a gang within the BDs. To simply say that the two gangs are rivals downplays the amount of hate that they have for each other. Gang members kill each other and brag about it on social media. I mean, it takes a different level of heartlessness to end someone's life, make fun of it, and go ahead and taunt the victim's friends to do something. Well, since Von and Duck's beef stems from the rivalry between the GDs and BDs, it is important to explore what sparked the enmity between the two groups, which has lasted for more than a decade and resulted in countless deaths as each side continues to try to get even for the death of their gang members. This rivalry, as we will see in this video, ultimately led to Duck's death. The war between the GDs and BDs was the reason that Von hated Duck so much that he offered $100,000 to anyone who would take out his op once and for all. As we will see, one of the incidents that took place as the war between the two gangs viciously raged on finally broke the camel's back. Remember, to guys from the streets, $100,000 is a lot of money, so whatever happened must have been very personal to Von that it pushed him to break the bank and have his op killed. I mean, the hit on Duck seemed so forced and desperate that those involved seemed to throw all caution to the wind with making a clean getaway and ensuring they weren't caught. The hit was in broad daylight and in the nicer part of the city. The killers were so sloppy that they were finally caught a few months later. So how did it all start? The Gangster Disciples gang was formed back in 1969 in Inglewood on the south side of Chicago. The gang would eventually break up into two factions after leadership feuds within the group could not be solved. This formed the GDs and BDs. Over the years, two gangs have seen splinter groups emerge from within or join their ranks through alliances. STL-EBT and O-Block are two examples of such gangs. STL-EBT, also known as Tookaville or Tooka Gang, is made up of two gangster disciple sets who merged. The two sets, STL and EBT, formed an alliance when a high-ranking member from STL, also known as C-Ball, began to get close with EBT members. Eventually, the two sets decided to form STL-EBT. A defining moment in the history of the gang came on January 12, 2011 with the death of 15-year-old Shondale Gregory, alias Tooka. Young Tooka was waiting for a bus on the 600 block of East 63rd Street at about 6:48 p.m. when a dark-colored vehicle pulled up and a masked gunman shot the 10th grader to death. The teen was a suspected member of the GDs, and his death marked the beginning of a bloody war between them and the neighboring gang, Weech City. To mark their commitment to avenge Tooka's death, they adopted names such as Tookaville and Tooka Gang. Their revenge would come months later on August 11th, and what better way to get it than to take out Weech City's most beloved, O.D. Perry? Between 2006 and 2011, it is believed that the fearless Weech City shooter was involved in more than 50 shootings. The famous shooter had made the territory unsafe for Weech City ops, that at one time they were forced to stop coming to the McDonald's that was located directly across from Parkway. He had turned the area into a no-go zone for Weech City's ops. Although initial police reports showed that O.D. was killed on the 6400 block of South Martin Luther King Drive, that night at about 11:35 p.m. was riding his bike when he was shot and sustained multiple gunshot wounds, including one to his neck. As he lay on the street bleeding out, one member of Weech City held him in his arms as he uttered his last words. This was none other than James Johnson, alias T-Roy. According to Jay Hood, a former O-Block member, O.D. Perry's last words to T-Roy were, "They got me, bro."
And then T-Roy was like there with him his last little moments, and T-Roy and then T-Roy said that O was like, "Damn, they got me, bro." Like that was his last words.
20-year-old O.D. Perry was taken to Stroger Hospital where he was pronounced dead a little over midnight. This was a big blow for Weech City that they changed their name to O-Block to honor their fallen soldier, a man who had put in a lot of work for them by striking fear into their ops' hearts. The man was adored by the young and old alike that his funeral was jam-packed with people from the area.
O was loved, like overly loved. His funeral was packed.
In an interview, Jay Hood explained that O.D.'s funeral was so packed that people couldn't even get in.
His funeral? I ain't never seen nobody funeral that packed. I didn't even know O.D. knew all them people. That was packed. People couldn't even get in that on my life. And I'm like, I seen hella years. How the hell he know all these people?
His death had left many Weech City members devastated that even J Hood, a man who had left the gang life, could not help but wipe tears from his eyes as he narrated OD's death many years after it happened. J Hood's reaction as he remembered OD's death summed up the mood that was in the air in Parkway Gardens, the headquarters of O Block at the time. He was the first death that many in the area had witnessed, and it left a huge mark on them.
What do you think it was about OD that made him so loved? I mean, because not everybody gets a block named after them.
He was one of the first deaths that was from the ops. When you one of the first to die, man, it hit harder.
However, OD's death hit even harder for one young man, 17-year-old T. Roy. Having been present as OD's life slowly and painfully ended, he must have been traumatized. So much so that he decided that he would take after OD. He would make it his mission to track down ops and stack up their bodies. It is important to note that at that time, T. Roy was best friends with King Von, and they formed a deadly partnership that would claim the lives of many rival gang members. I bring up T. Roy as his close friendship with Von played a crucial role in the death of FBG Duck. T. Roy was eventually gunned down on Valentine's Day of 2017. The vicious cycle of killings that had been sparked by Tuka's death eventually claimed King Von's best friend. So how was FBG Duck eventually roped into all this? King Von versus FBG Duck. The war between the GDs and BDs in Chicago became more vicious as more bodies dropped. It was even nicknamed Chirac since Chicago now resembled the war in Iraq. Interestingly, the war was fought on two fronts. One was the streets where ops were taking shots at each other with guns. The other front was in the booth where rappers were savagely taking metaphorical shots at each other. What made the hip-hop rivalry between the two even more savage was the fact that even dead members were brought into the fold. Music was used by both sides to brag about the pain and suffering they had caused each other, to mock the dead gang members and threaten each other. It was chaotic, but for some reason, the hip-hop world enjoyed it. The disses between the two gangs caught the industry's attention as fans eagerly waited for diss tracks to drop. While the BDs had rappers such as Von, Chief Keef, and Dirk, the GD's poster child was Carlton Weekly, alias FBG Duck. Born in 1993, Duck was raised on the dangerous south side of the city and got involved with gangs and street violence at a young age. A key factor that shaped Duck's life was that he did not grow up with his father in his life. According to him, his father had been locked up before Duck was even born. Therefore, the other male role model he looked up to was his older brother, Jermaine Robinson, alias FBG Brick. Growing up, FBG Brick brother was part of STL EBT, so Duck followed suit and started repping the gang while still a teenager. This is where Duck's story becomes more interesting. While repping STL EBT, he became close friends with Tuka. While in an interview with Vlad, Duck revealed that he and Tuka hit it off immediately they met and became best friends. The two spent a lot of time together as they would even spend the night at each other's houses. The day Tuka was shot and killed, Duck could not hold back his tears as he saw his lifeless body on the ground. However, unlike T. Roy, who resulted to avenge O.D. Perry's death using his pipe, FBG Duck took to the booth to put in work for his gang. Although Duck was heavy into music, it should be noted that there are rumors that before his career took off, he still had one foot in the streets. It is rumored that he slid into ops territories on several occasions and was involved in several shootings. The loss of his best friend led Duck to form the Flyboy Gang, or FBG, alongside FBG Mello and FBG Dutchie. Around this time, Duck was introduced to the rap scene by a close friend, Billionaire Black. The BDs were not left behind, as they were also firmly in the hip-hop industry, with rapper Chief Keef putting them on the map. Chief Keef is crucial to this story as he popularized dissing one of the GD's most beloved, Tuka. In his song 300, Chief Keef raps, "I'm high, I'm smoking ganja, a Tuka gang beat, I'm 300. This was not the only song that Chief Keef went after his dead ops with. In his record John Madden, the rapper sings, Tuka gang, I let this Ruger bang. According to sources, 300 put Tuka's name outside Chicago. Although many people outside the city did not know or understand the name's history, it became popular in clubs where people would sing along to it. Other O-Block rappers took up the mantle and continued dissing Tuka in their music. Non-Chicago rappers also joined in and would use Tuka's name in their songs. However, for most of them, the history of Tuka was unknown. Sources claim that non-Chicago rappers thought that Tuka was slang for weed. For the GDs, this was heartbreaking. When speaking to Vlad, FBG Duck revealed that he always got mad anytime anyone mentioned Tuka's name. That's why I go so crazy when it mentions his name. This bigger than what them saying on their songs, he said in the interview. One of the people who was deeply hurt about Tuka being disrespected was his mom, Dominique Boyd. In an interview with Say Cheese, she revealed that she couldn't bring herself to understand why people would kill someone and make fun of their death.
How could you kill somebody, knowing somebody killed somebody and cause grief to another family and mimic that? What's funny about that? They the ones who's making him famous and blowing him up like this, because they can't stop saying his name.
And even as she spoke, it was clear that she was devastated by the whole situation. What has my son done to y'all to make y'all disrespect him like this? Every song they make has got, we smoking on Tuka, Tuka this, Tuka that. You know how long my son has been gone? Since 2011. This is 2022, and he's still a trending topic, Tuka's mom complained. Now that FBG Duck was popular in the hip-hop industry, he replied the best way he knew how, through rap. He was forced to go extra hard in his music after his fellow FBG member Lil Jojo, who was going hard, was caught lacking by his ops and taken out. After Lil Jojo's death, Duck became O-Block's #1 target. This would be seen as the case, as he was also caught lacking and shot in the leg. He was walking out of a liquor store when a man came up from behind him and fired at him. Luckily, his op had a terrible aim, and Duck limped out of the situation alive. He would continue taking L's as 2017 saw him lose his brother FBG Brick and cousin Stanley Jacoby Mack, alias Kobe Mack. The pair were shot dead in the 6300 block of South St. Lawrence. According to Duck's mom, a car pulled up to where the pair were sitting and started letting off shots. Kobe was hit and killed instantly, while Brick ran for his life. As he tried to jump over a fence, he was shot in the back. There was also another shooter who was waiting for them in case the guys in the car missed. After almost getting away, Brick was shot in the face by the second shooter. According to Duck's mom, the hitmen had come for FBG Duck as a car had earlier pulled up asking for his whereabouts.
So they were standing out there, and this block was full of people. And the story that I'm hearing was a car pulled up and asked for Duck. Like, yo, Duck out here? And everybody looking like, who is you? They didn't recognize who was in the car.
All these incidents fueled Duck's desire to get back at his ops through the booth. The following year would see Duck's hard work pay off as he broke into the mainstream with his song Slide. The track expanded his fan base to outside the city of Chicago as it racked up millions of views on YouTube. The song became even more popular after 21 Savage agreed to hop on the remix. His newfound success helped him sign a record deal with Sony Records worth a few $1,000,000. 63rd was finally starting to compete with their close rivals at 6400 O-Block. In January 2019, King Von and Memo 600 collaborated on their track Exposing Me, where they took a swipe at several of their ops, including Tuka. On the track, Von raps, "I'm tired of smelling Tuka and Lil Mark, and I'm tired of scrap. I'm thinking about creating a new pack." On the other hand, Memo 600 raps, "Off that Zico, Tuka, and that Fats, we gon' put in work." Duck was fed up. By dissing his best friend Tuka, O-Block had crossed the line, and now since he had an audience, he was about to light them up. Using the same beat from Von's track, Duck released Exposing Me, remix, with fellow rapper Ruga. In the song, they went after O-Block's legends such as Odie Perry, D-Thang, and even Von's best friend T-Roy. The two start the track by reminding O-Block that STLEBT made them after killing OD. Duck also disses T-Roy when he raps, "T-Roy ain't get shot inside his head, but he ain't make it though. They got so many dead I don't know who to smoke." He continued his disrespect with, "Your homie, he dead. You heard what I said. Shiroid, OD, D-Thang, Tirehead." The track was full of disses to the O-Block's dead ops and a few shots to their current big boys, Dirk and Von. The song received millions of views and was much more popular than Von's track. O-Block was not too happy about either situation. They had been outdone in the booth by their rivals and had their legends disrespected. One man whose ego seemed to be bruised the most was Von. He went to the extent of confronting Duck in his DMs saying, "I'm really helping you out, you feel me, cause your shit ain't hitting on nothing. Now talking about you. You feel me? You welcome Goofy." Duck would later reply, calling him a fan. "You really needed to mention me for your shit to do numbers like all you other silly boa. I've been a topic, you know that. Just say you a fan, lil BD." Duck didn't stop there as he put out Deadbeat in July 2020, where he continued dissing O-Block. In the track, Duck raps, "Made Chicago legends. That was just about business. Said I wasn't gonna diss the dead, and okay, I did it. But T-Roy and Odie, them dead." Just as Duck hated it when people dissed his best friend, it seemed as though Von also took any disrespect towards T-Roy personally. Just 1 month after the diss, FBG Duck was gunned down in Chicago. So how did it happen? The death of FBG Duck.
Rob, Chicago police tell me that these 3 victims were targeted, that 4 men in 2 different vehicles came down Oak Street, stopped right here in the middle, and started firing.
August 4th, 2020. News broke out that FBG Duck had been shot and killed at Michigan Avenue and East Oak Street in the Gold Coast area of Chicago. Everyone could tell that it was a hit. First, it was done in broad daylight and in one of the most luxurious streets in Chicago. The gunmen had thrown all caution to the wind and were determined to take out their target. Most hits in Chirac took place in the streets where there were no CCTV cameras, and the witnesses would not cooperate with cops for fear of being labeled rats. However, in this case, the shooters did not mind the glaring cameras, the numerous witnesses around, or even police presence. Even the deputy chief was quoted saying, "We don't expect this type of activity in this neighborhood. This area is well policed." To see this happen in the middle of the day is very, very disturbing. The killer's audacity that day was a major concern to people's safety that even the city's mayor, Lori Lightfoot, commented on the situation, saying, "What we're seeing is a manifestation of a larger problem, which is that way too many young men, and particularly young men of color, have access to guns and are willing to use those guns to settle petty grievances." So how did the gunman pull off such a daring hit on the GD's most successful rapper? That day, Duck and his girlfriend headed to the Gold Coast area of Chicago. Duck, who was now stacking bread from his music career, went shopping in Chicago's posh areas. The two had gone to the area to buy presents for his son. Duck's son's birthday was in a week's time. Unknown to the couple is that members of O Block were fed up with Duck and had finally decided to slide on him. Armed to the teeth, the two groups would soon meet in the Gold Coast area. The time was around 4:10 p.m. While on Oak Street, Duck got out of the car that his girlfriend was driving and stood in line in front of a store. While in line, Duck was joined by a man identified as Day Day, a fan who wanted to take a picture with Duck. Little did he know that he was at the wrong place and at the wrong time. However, some reports suggest that Day Day knew one of the killers and that it was he who had informed them of Duck's location and stayed with him till they got there to finish the job. The rapper's killers were also in the vicinity and jumped into action. A few minutes earlier, CCTV cameras all over the city picked up the killer's movements blocks away from the location that was about to turn into a murder scene. They must have been tipped off about their victim's whereabouts because just moments before putting their plan into action, they were captured on camera running down a stairwell at Parkway Gardens at 63rd and Martin Luther King Drive. They jumped into a Ford Fusion which ferried them to Duck's location. However, the Ford Fusion was not the only vehicle that was used in the daring shooting. The other killers were in a Chrysler 300. According to authorities, surveillance footage also traced the two vehicles' path from Parkway Gardens to their destination on Oak Street. Cops also revealed that they caught the two vehicles traveling in the same direction in the 6200 block of South Wentworth and were only 5 seconds apart. This was captured by CCTV cameras in at least 8 locations, meaning that indeed the two cars were following each other to the crime scene. At this time, Duck was out of the car and waiting in line outside a store. Just then, a man wearing reflective sunglasses and a black hoodie jumped out of the Fusion and approached Duck and Day Day. Duck was on high alert and immediately became suspicious. Once the hooded man retrieved a gun, the two were quick to react as they ran into a Dolce & Gabbana store where they sought refuge. The cops were called and notified of the situation. After the failed hit, the hooded man ran back and got into the car, which sped off. Normally, after failing to get an op the first time, it was normal to count ones and try again another day. However, this was not the case for FBG Duck's killers. They waited for him to exit the store. This just goes to show that the group was desperate. They must have had some sort of motivation since they seemed not to care about cops arriving at the scene after the first shooter scared a crowd away. Eventually, Duck and Day Day got out of the store. As anyone would, the two thought that the coast was clear. All this time, Duck's girlfriend was safe in their car. However, as the two were standing outside the store, the Chrysler and the Fusion stopped just in front of Duck's dark-colored sedan. Two men jumped out of the Fusion with pipes in their hands and opened fire at the rapper and Day Day as they hid behind Duck's car. However, two men jumped out of the Chrysler and opened fire on Duck's girl and the two who were hiding. After everything was quiet, the shooters got back into their cars and sped off. Duck and Day Day sustained multiple gunshot wounds and were in critical condition while Duck's girlfriend was shot in her wrist. Duck's mom later revealed that despite Duck sustaining multiple gunshot wounds, he would have survived as he lay on the ground fighting for his life for more than 20 minutes. Shockingly, Northwestern Memorial Hospital, where Duck was eventually taken, and Oak Street is only a 3-minute taxi ride away. Luckily, Day Day and Duck's girlfriend survived the ordeal. Sadly, he was pronounced dead when he arrived at the hospital.
All that time they had him and denied him medical attention. He was on that ground dying. And by the time he made it to the hospital, he was deceased.
Wow.
In the hospital 3 minutes away from where he was shot at.
Having accomplished their mission, the killers drove off. Surprisingly, the Chrysler was spotted heading back to Parkway Gardens. However, the next day, the vehicle was found in the 2100 block of Gunderson in Berwyn. As if going back to their neighborhood in the car they had committed a crime in was not bad enough, the cops revealed that the Ford Fusion was registered to one of those involved in Duck's murder. Now, I'm not sure why anyone would commit a crime in broad daylight, in a street full of CCTV cameras, and use a vehicle registered to them. Either Duck's killers were not the smartest group of thugs, or they just did not care. Or maybe there was another sinister reason why they threw caution to the wind. A reason that would get the cops very interested in the case and later lead to the arrest of everyone involved. However, this was not the only blunder that the killers made. In a shocking turn of events, the group announced to the world why they had killed FBG Duck. Why FBG Duck was killed.
News: a major development in the murder of a Chicago rapper gunned down in the middle of the day in the Gold Coast.
5 alleged Chicago street gang members now facing federal charges in connection with the shooting death of a local rapper downtown.
On October 13th, 2020, the feds raided O Block and arrested 5 men for Duck's murder. These were Charles Liggins, aka C Murder, Kenneth Robertson, aka Kenny Mack, Carlos Offord, aka Loss, Christopher Thomas, aka C Thang, and Marcus Smart, aka Muwab. The 5 were charged with murder, unlawful use of firearms, racketeering, and assault with dangerous weapons. The charges carried a mandatory minimum of life upon conviction. There was even talk of the prosecution seeking the death penalty. So how were the O Block members caught? According to authorities, they did not have to do a lot of old school investigations. One tool proved to be very helpful, and that is social media. The thugs could not shy away from bragging about their crime on social media. All the cops had to do was keep a watchful eye on the social media pages of O Block gang members, and the murder would be solved. Most of the gang members would go on Instagram Live and hint at Duck's murder. They were overjoyed at getting back at the op who had single-handedly embarrassed them. However, there were 2 particular incidents that helped the feds blow the lid off the case. The first one was help from an informant. Someone snitched on the group. The feds revealed that someone had put a $50,000 bounty on Duck's head. However, no one was willing to do it. The informant further revealed that the same individual had bumped up his offer to $100,000. Someone from O Block was willing to part ways with $100,000 in exchange for someone's death who wanted Duck dead so bad. And more importantly, what had the GD rapper done to have such a heavy price put on his head? Although the informant did not reveal the individual's name, they told the cops that the said person had rewarded the killers with custom-made O Block chains. Things were starting to fall into place. A video had earlier surfaced on YouTube of none other than King Von giving O Block members custom-made chains. Apart from this, among all the O Block members, he was the one who had that kind of money since he had made it big in his music career. Although all this is definitely bizarre. Wait till you hear who the suspected informant was. None other than King Von's little brother. Louis V. Documents from the feds showed that the snitch had been arrested for unlawful use of a weapon on the 17th of August 2020. Unfortunately, no one else close to Von or even from O Block was arrested on the same day or on the same charge. That left only Louis V, who fit the description in the police documents. Apart from that, he also could have known of Von's move on FBG Duck. Turns out blood is not thicker than water. It is possible that the killers had been motivated by the money that they would receive as a reward for sliding on Duck that they became sloppy. One of the sloppiest moves had to be using a vehicle registered to one of them to commit the crime. According to the feds, the Ford Fusion had been registered to Lost. The group must have been in such a hurry to get to Duck that day that they didn't have time to steal cars for the job. But why did Von want his op taken care of that urgently? One of the killers would reveal the reason in a YouTube video. It seems YouTube was their greatest undoing. In one of the most bizarre cases of self-snitching, the gang allowed a vlogger, Panda Productions, into their stronghold. Interestingly, viewers easily pointed out in the comments section that they could spot the car that had been used in Duck's murder. I mean, if ordinary netizens could do a little bit of detective work, imagine what the boys in blue had already gathered from this video. And one of the things the feds picked up from the video was motive, which is crucial in any murder case. Boss Top became a little too cocky and decided to answer any question on camera. Then came the $1 million question, FBG Duck.
But you got any thoughts on FBG Duck? Any thoughts on him? Did you know him? Who, Duck? Did you know him before? Everything
like that. I don't know. On game. All I know, don't say that shit about Troy or rest in peace, Duck.
Now the world knew that Duck's constantly dissing T-Roy was the reason a bounty was placed on his head. Just like Duck never wanted his dead best friend mocked, it seems as though King Von felt the same way about people dissing his dead homie. Remember, just a month to his death, he had released Dead Beat where he dissed T-Roy. I mean, other dead members had been dissed, so why had he singled out T-Roy, a man who had a close relationship with Von?
You don't say shit about Troy. That's it.
Boss Top didn't stop there as he continued his impressive form, snitching on himself. He revealed that the O Block chains they had were like trophies to them.
It ain't no this shit ain't no other chain. This like, it's like a trophy to this our brother, you know? This More than a chain.
Boss Top confirmed that the informant was telling the truth. First, a hit had been put out on Duck since the reason for the hit was the diss on T-Roy. The informant was also correct, as the O-Block chains had been used to reward the killers. Popular hip-hop commentator DJ Academics noted that the feds became particularly invested in the case because there was money involved. Most Chirac murders rarely saw people arrested or even hit with RICO cases. However, RICO cases were common when dealing with New York gangs because they normally involved money. However, in Chirac, people were often killed for merely repping the wrong gang. This was until Vaughn decided to involve payments leading to a RICO charge for the 5 who were arrested. So there you have it. Vaughn's best friend was the reason the Chicago rapper put out a $100,000 hit on FBG Duck, with the case against the 5 set to start. Sometime in 2023, it is interesting to see what will be unearthed.